Good morning, everybody. It's Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple, and this is your Monday morning market breakdown. Welcome, everybody. We're nearing the very end here of October. I can't believe this month has just absolutely flown by. For my regulars that are on this morning, if you guys are sensing my voice is a little deeper, that is absolutely correct. It was a full day of lacrosse tournament yesterday, and yeah, I tell my players to leave it on the field, and I kind of leave it on the sideline. As a coach, I definitely am quite loud and vocal. So. Hopefully the voice will hold out in our session today, but if not, it is still me, I promise. With that being said, let's just kind of jump into things today, make sure we don't kind of go longer than we need to. For those of you that are new today, welcome. I appreciate you guys coming out on Monday morning. I know it is early. I like to do it this early just so we can get in before any news that exists on a Monday. Today's not one of those days, but again, we have to stay consistent. For those who know me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick little background here. This is not to brag or anything about my accolades. It's so you guys understand in my chart analysis really what I look at. I'm a price action trader. I'm different than a lot of other people out there. I'm not an indicator-based person. I don't use indicators. I know how to use them, and I know how to use them against people, but I'm a price action trader. I read candlesticks. Okay. I've been trading really since about 2000, 2001 time period is when I first entered the market. Started with traditional options and stocks, and then eventually found foreign currencies. Learned futures, never really traded it, just didn't match my personality. And then obviously learned binary options a few years ago, and I've been doing it ever since. So I do trade multiple asset classes. Today I primarily talk about currencies because that's all that's really moving today. And again, matches up perfectly well with Nadex. I have worked in the advisor division for one of the big three banks. I don't go into which bank it was, but it is one of the big three. It gave me an interesting perspective on the inside, how they look at the markets. At the end of the day, obviously the banks and institutions are really what are responsible for moving around most of the markets. Hearing and learning what they do and what they believe and how they treat people's money definitely was eye-opening for me. And then I was very lucky afterwards. I left that market and wanted to teach people how to trade. The group that I worked for, actually, I got to be friends and very close friends with multiple guys that were market makers previously. But they always say in their previous life, but understanding how the markets move from a market maker also added an entirely new dimension to my trading. And I got to say, very thankful for meeting those guys. Besides that, obviously, besides being a trader, definitely very proud of my family. The two boys actually, they are twins, even though one is definitely bigger than the other one. They are twins. It was their lacrosse tournament yesterday, and then obviously the little one is the one that keeps me busy these days. She's 16 months, walking, does a lot of pointing and grunting, but not quite talking yet. So she's right there. She loves charts. She sits on my lap and watches charts all the time. So I'm very interested to see as she gets older, if she's going to be the best trader of the three. So we will see how that goes. All right. So with that being said, I will say right now, I am not a trader that believes in sitting in front of a computer for 16 hours a day. I'm a big believer in technology. So a lot of the trading in my analysis is if this, then that. If price gets to this area, I'm looking to sell. If price gets to that area, I'm looking to buy type of situations. I'm not you should buy this right now, you should sell this right now. Okay, it doesn't work that way for me. All right, just so you guys understand my trading and my trading philosophy. Now, obviously, because we're talking about charts and things like that, we have to include a disclaimer. Here's the Nadex risk disclaimer. Trading on Nadex involves risk and may not be appropriate for all investors. Trading can be volatile and investors risk losing their cost to enter the transaction, including fees. The information presented here within this presentation is for information and education purposes only and should not be considered an offer or solicitation to buy or sell any financial instrument on Nadex or elsewhere. Any trading decisions that you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Nadex contracts are based on underlying asset classes including Forex, stock index futures, and commodity futures. Nadex is a registered trademark of the IG Group. All right, so with that being said, here's my top three for the week. As you guys know, or if you're new here, what I do is I will break down what I consider the top three kind of best trading opportunities. Okay, it doesn't mean that these will be or anything, but these are the three that I think have the biggest potential for market moves. Now, obviously every week it breaks down differently. We have quite a good track record. A lot of these tend to end up being misses and very large price movements. This week, these are the top three. I'll actually go through kind of what the week looks like. It's actually somewhat of an anemic week this week, but first one being on Thursday, this would be the core durable goods orders. Anytime we get any type of orders data, particularly something, as far as like durable goods goes, it's a pretty good, possibility of having something be market moving. Because this week is rather, like I said, rather anemic on news, this is probably the best opportunity we have as far as a big market mover as far as news goes, okay? Some weeks are huge, some weeks are not so huge. This is one of those not so huge weeks. So that's kind of that 8:30-ish kind of piece in the morning. And again, what that'll do is that'll affect not only dollar yen prices, but pretty much anything that has the yen pair in it, as well as the overall indices. So if you were an index trader, again, that will affect the indices because there's not really a whole lot of US news to talk about this week, okay? Number 2 would be on October 22nd, on Tuesday, and that would be the CAD retail sales numbers. Retail sales are always very big market movers. And again, more or less people are guessing what the sales numbers are going to be, but this is kind of the first clue of what we have as far as what the overall GDP numbers are going to look like. And again, retail sales is good. When people are buying, the economies are doing well. When people are nervous, again, this is retail sales kind of almost combines a lot of things, kind of like a consumer confidence, what the overall economy is doing. Again, when people think the markets are going to be turning and getting bad and the economy is going to be getting rough, people tend not to spend as much money. So retail sales numbers tend to be market movers regardless of the currency pair that you're trading, okay? And again, that won't necessarily affect the US stock markets, but again, it will affect anything with the Canadian dollar associated with it, okay? All right, number 3, the euro. So typically, the European Union has kind of a different policy because it's a group of a bunch of different nations. They don't necessarily have as many market moving news releases. Now, I really should just say Thursday is going to be crazy, and again, I'll show you in a second, but Thursday is when we have a lot of the different kind of flash services or PMI data coming from the European Union, starting in the morning all the way through. But at 8:30, there's an ECB press conference that isn't at an actual country's individual PMI, but it's a press conference from the ECB. Okay, with everything going on with Brexit right now, and again, we're going to have, the main refinancing rate is supposed to be 0. It's not supposed to change this time, but the press conference is where they tend to have, they answer questions about what happens in the future. There's a monetary policy statement, but then the questions section is where they could give an answer that the market is really looking for towards the future. And that's where the market moving information can come from. And again, that would affect any of the European pairs. It would affect any of the pound pairs. Really, it would affect a lot of different things. Because again, because the European Union has such kind of global influence, it's so many countries involved. It kind of gives us a kind of a global picture of what the world feels like is coming. Okay. And then again, the warning for this week is obviously Brexit. Last week at the end, there was all that positive news about Brexit, but really at the end of the day, nothing happened over the weekend. It kind of all fell through. I've mentioned this multiple weeks. Until they actually officially have left, it's not over. They'll work on Saturdays. They'll work at weird hours of the night. Again, the problem is there's a lot of risk this week. Anything, again, as we get closer and closer to that deadline, it looks like they're trying to push for another extension. But again, it may or may not happen. Eventually, they're not going to be able to extend things any further. I know they want to get a deal through. I know Johnson is, he's very motivated. Again, he's having another vote, I guess, again today, I believe. I don't think it's happened yet, but it's whether today or tomorrow. It's a vote that he did not have the ability to get over the weekend. So, at any moment today, or any moment this week, a deal could be signed. And again, Brexit is going to affect all the European Union. It's going to affect the pound, and it's probably going to affect the overall markets because, again, that's, if you take the euro and the pound, that's a pretty big, besides the U.S., that's a large, global powerhouse in the economy as far as trading and everything else going on. So we'll see. And again, if you guys are unfamiliar with Brexit, it's been happening for quite some time now. But the reason it's big is because it's a country actually leaving the European Union. Now, obviously, different currency pairs, but this could kind of lay the groundwork for what something needs to look like for some of the smaller countries to leave the European Union as well. Okay, if it's not working for them. All right. So again, at any moment this could be released. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Okay, but like I said, the 31st is kind of the deadline if they don't extend. But I know they're really, really pushing to get things through Parliament this week. Okay. All right. So with that being said, let me drag Forex Factor in so you guys can see. Okay, so what I've done is I've kind of put my settings on basically high and medium impact news. Okay, you can see today is the Canadian elections. The last I saw, the conservative, I guess it's the CDC, the Conservative Party up there was winning. by 2 percentage points. I haven't seen any more. I haven't checked it this morning, but the post I saw from 11 hours ago or something, I guess that's how they were polling, or that's what was happening, that they were looking like they were in the lead. So again, that will affect the Canadian economy as well. It will also affect our economy somewhat as well, because obviously, trade relations back and forth between Canada. So that'll be interesting to see how that kind of boils out. Now, tomorrow morning is that core retail sales with CAD. Okay, you guys can see it right here. As well as at 10:30, again, the BOC Business Outlook Survey. There's not an actual number to release on that one, but again, that will also affect the Canadian dollar. We'll see how that kind of boils out. On Wednesday, really the only high impact news release is crude oil. And if you guys can see, crude has been all over the place. The last 5 releases, it's basically come in as a red, right? That they keep under forecasting what it's going to be. They finally tried to catch up. You guys can see we were at -2. It's like, it's closer to 3, it's closer to 3, it's closer to 3. And they finally changed it closer to 3. And then the surplus came in at 9.3. Okay. So with that being said, I would definitely, again, watch out for this. If you're not trading crude oil, or if, again, I would not, me personally, again, this is my personal opinion, I would not start trading crude oil in the futures market. I would trade it over here at Nadex, just because of the potential that, the binaries give you with the limited risk going into it. All right. Your chart analysis should be exactly the same, no different whatsoever. But again, crude oil is basically the only thing that we have to trade Wednesday morning this week. Okay. Again, very, very shy. Now, Thursday is what I was talking about before. You guys can see, man, there's so much news on Thursday. It's all European based. And again, it's French flash PMI, it's German manufacturing, German flash services. And then we get the main refinancing rate in at 745. Again, it's expected to be, it's a 0 now. It's expected to stay 0. It's not expected, obviously, to rise. Again, the monetary policy statement is the prepared notes. So again, that's kind of what people are going to look at and analyze. And then the ECB press conference is where questions get asked and things get, potentially a little bit more volatile. That is also at the same time when the core durable goods orders come out for the US. So watch spikes in the US dollar, as well as that could kind of set off the dollar in the morning. Now, again, we do have US manufacturing PMI. This doesn't affect currencies as much, but again, it's right around market open. Again, manufacturing is a big deal when you start talking about inflation. Again, this is that number right here. Basically 50 is the magic number. You guys can see right here. Anything above 50 indicates industrial expansion. Below contraction. You guys can see where we've been, right? We're kind of hovering around 50. We went below 50, which is a very big deal in August. September, it actually got popped up, and there was actually an adjustment. So it actually didn't go under. Okay, they had to adjust it back again. So we're right around that 51 number, and again, it looks like it's dropping again, but we're literally, it's playing with fire. It's kind of almost like the hokey pokey, putting your put your foot over, your toe over, we're right there between expansion and contraction. So I'll tell you right now, with elections and things like that starting to they get closer for us and creeping around, if this number starts dropping below 50, it's going to give some talking points, to a few different, people out there. So again, big number to be watching. Again, not the biggest market mover as far as currencies go, but it could definitely sway what we have going on. And then Friday, nothing. They're on vacation this weekend, right? Not a lot of news releases. Again, German info business, climate, not too much there, so not too much to worry about. All right, so like I said, overall this week, very, very shy. If you took Thursday out, it is very anemic. There's only a few different releases this week. Which means besides Brexit, I'm actually assuming that it's going to be somewhat of a slower week, unless we get any other type of geopolitical headlines. Okay. All right. So with that being said, let's go over to charts and see things on a technical basis. All right. So some of the things that are on my charts, for those of you that are new, are from last week. I use the same charts with my group at night as well. I have this daily gap up here, so you guys can ignore it now. It's already actually happened. It was basically over in here. You just ignore it now. So one thing that we are talking about is we are actually passing through this daily gap area, which is actually pretty nice, okay? One of the trade patterns that I am very fond of is what we call a momentum breakout. It's basically where we've broken a prior level, it comes back and retests that level and then continues in the direction of the breakout. And that's kind of where this is forming right now. It's not quite set up there yet. It hasn't come back and retested it. I'd like it to go a little bit further before I'm looking for, a type of long situation. But for me right now, I'm a bit bearish. I'm sorry, a bit bullish. We had this gap here. We did fill the gap, okay, and we came back, from the gap area and pulled back down. It did exactly what it was supposed to do, or that we were looking for it to do last week. Now we finally broken through, and again, what we're doing is we're looking for some type of a pullback and continuation pattern. This pair is obviously affected by a couple different factors. Obviously, with Australia involved, it's the Australian economy, but it also deals with the U.S. economy and inflation and gold. Okay, anytime you hear inflation numbers, the first thing you're thinking is gold hedge. That goes right into Australia because they are large exporters of gold. So for me, that's kind of what I'm looking for. If you guys look at this on a larger level on the daily here, this is that level, that gap, that kind of push back down again. When I look left from where price is right now, we are starting to get into some areas. I mean, especially right in here, you guys can see this is a very, very large explosive candle to the downside. And we're coming right back into that same area. So there are, potentially some sellers sitting up in this zone. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for those guys to step back in again. Again, on the larger picture. Like I said, on the near term, I'm looking for somewhat of a pullback, but I'm going to be very, very cautious in any kind of run to the top side because of where we are located on the daily. All right. So just be cautious of this kind of area, this pullback basically from 74.80 to about 75 area. I expect that there's going to be some sellers there. Okay. Looking at Aussie dollar. Okay, Aussie dollar is in a similar situation. We marked off this one level here. It kind of grounded into the area, and that's where we ended on Friday. I was happy about that. I wanted to see where we opened. Again, we opened in the opposite direction, right? Kind of a bit of a pullback, and then it can just continue to push forward. So it used that break as a kind of pushback up again. Here's the top, where this kind of you guys see this kind of tannish box. This tannish box was the upper level of what we would call the curve, right? It's the upper side. It's where the last time the price was here is where we got this nice push, this red candle, this green, and this red candle to the downside. It started the down push down, and that's really where we're at right now. We've now had 5 days in a row with no real pullback, anything, right? The smallest we had was on the 4-hour chart right here. So we haven't gotten a whole lot, okay? For me, I have these two zones up top, this 89.95 to, 68.95 to 69.07. This zone up top is where I'm looking to potentially get short, but it depends on, if we enter it in one burst or if it doesn't. I expect that it's going to be probably grindy today. I don't think we'll have a lot of movement when US gets in, the US traders come in. The market's kind of already reacted to any of the weekend news. And, again, there's not a lot of US catalysts today to move things. And you'll see it's going to start, on the 30-minute, you guys can see it's already starting to kind of flatten out and grind based off of what we saw overnight. So there'll obviously be a little bit of adjustment. Any pop higher into that zone, again, I'll be potentially looking to get short. So euro pound is something that I'll be spending a lot of time looking at this week. Again, the last 2 weeks, you've heard me talk about pound strength. I've definitely been on the pound strength thing. And the reason why is just because I think with them really trying to get a deal settled, I think people are finally like, listen, this will be good. This is originally why they did it. And again, we're starting to see that. Last week, it did get a little bit choppy, and then we had a couple pullbacks into an area of sellers that were really nice. Again, it was an area where we saw price really kind of shoot to the downside. Again, this is price action 101. Again, price popped up, came back down again, came over and pushed again. And you can see it right now. Again, this is the news reacting over the weekend. You can see even though, this was the push. Actually, I'm sorry, it was kind of this kind of push down, right? Here's Brexit news. Here's a little bit of Brexit news. And again, Brexit news, even though it failed, nothing happened over the weekend. They're still trying to get a deal passed. We're seeing strength come in, okay, for the pound. Okay, we're seeing European weakness. Again, another reason why any day this week, Brexit could continue to send this thing to the downside, as well as we could see those European, that European date on Thursday could also be another catalyst, especially if the European Union starts talking about recession and weakness, okay? They talk about strength, it'd be great for this pair, but unfortunately, I think it's going to be the downside. So I'm more using this right now as a proxy of figuring out which one, whether it be euro dollar or pound dollar to trade, okay? But definitely still, for me, until we get down to this gold line at 85.29, I'm still kind of bearish minded. And again, I want to see this. I want to see it kind of leave this area pretty convincingly. I'd like to see another couple candles down, maybe a pullback a little bit. But I want to see it finally clear these two black lines, right? It's kind of been sucked in there, even though it's been, kind of pushing and making attempts farther south. Looking at euro yen. Euro yen, I believe today will be very slow. As you guys can see, it's very small candles. We've pushed up into an area where we do have selling. We've had previous areas of selling, not the best. Like I said, we had a big push away here, but price has already punched into that zone and kind of gone back and base below it. So kind of a strange little area, right? It's in an area, there's buyers right above, there's sellers right above it. And I wouldn't really say there's buyers below it, but right now it's still kind of pushing higher. And again, a lot of this is not so much euro strength, this is based off of the yen, okay, and basically more so the U.S. markets, okay. If we can get some traction this week in the U.S. markets, that would definitely help push this pair back down again. I would say right now where we are for the week, I would say I'm leaning more towards a bearish type of sentiment for this one, especially with the news going into Thursday. We'll see how this one plays out. Like I said, I think this one will be rather slow today. I don't think the yen is going to be able to help this one much. You can see the European traders really since last night, it's pushed up, right, and then pushed right back down once it crossed over into that area of sellers. So we definitely know there's somebody up top pushing price down, and we'll see whether, what it's able to do now. It hasn't moved for about, 4 hours, 5 hours. We'll see when U.S. traders come online. But for me, looking at this on a daily, again, hitting the zone up top where price has previously been pushed down, every time it tries to make an attempt up, I'm looking for some type of a pullback down, maybe into this this dotted line here at 119.56. Okay, looking at euro dollar. Okay, euro dollar, similar situation. Okay, the last time it was up in this area, again, it got turned around. Looking at the wicks here, looking how these were formed, definitely some some selling pressure in here. Every time it tried to make another push higher, it got kind of slammed back down again very, very fast. That's kind of the same idea. Now, the gap in this one, we did gap down a bit, but really price just stabilized. It held itself right at that same level. It really didn't do anything spectacular overnight from Sunday into today. Again, the only thing we got was just a little bit of a bounce for basically 2 hours at the European Open. And again, that was most likely affected by the pound news that, obviously that nothing got solved this weekend, even though there was a vote. It got pushed back up again. And really at the end of the day, it came right back down again. So not a whole lot in this one. Again, we are kind of after 3 days of straight up. Again, a lot of this is dollar weakness. We're sitting right up here at an area where it looks like it's trying to make valid attempts higher. It doesn't look like it's doing it very successfully. Any type of confirmation to the downside, particularly in the lower time frames, I'm going to be looking to go short with this one with targets potentially down over at 110.33. Going over the pound yen. Pound yen will be a volatile pair this week. Just be cautious of this one. Again, anything that is Brexit related, you want to be careful with it. As you can see, we pushed into this zone. Again, the last time we got this one was on Thursday. This was Brexit news. Bam, came right back up again and then pulled right back down. And we're in that same exact area right now. Okay, so just like the European pair, for me, this one is the same situation. Now, this one I do have two different levels where I figured price could bounce off of for Brexit. It only made it to the first one on that vote on Thursday. And again, where we are right now, you can see we're in the same exact area, obviously some strength. On the daily, it's where the zones were drawn from. You can see we have one level here and then one level above that I think is very important to note. It's 142.64 to 143.20. Both those areas up top, or that zone up top, I definitely like that one as well. It's a little bit farther away. It's a little bit more of a conservative kind of entry area to take a short. But where we are right now, any type of confirmation on the downside, not a bad position. The risk is rather small in that one, particularly for this pair. Like I said, sometimes these zones can get rather large. As you can see, the one last week from Brexit, this was the Thursday deal right here. Again, risk on that one was a little bit more, again, 60 pips. 60 pips for me personally is a lot to take in a single trade, particularly based off of, kind of news, responding. But with Nadex, obviously, it wasn't 60. It was much, much better. And again, this one moved 232 pips. If you guys know anything about that, that's about 2 days worth of movement in 3 hours. Okay, so that's what the potential and the power of Brexit can do. Again, that's why Nadex, with its predefined risk going into a trade, that's why it's very, very important. Okay, that's why I absolutely love Nadex. And if you're not trading it, again, you should definitely be looking at these. Make sure you go down the currency tab. I know a lot of people are very focused on indices, but check out currencies. Just the power of this with options is absolutely unreal. Okay, but again, looking for something similar over here, we'll get a confirmation. Looking at pound dollar. Okay. Same situation. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. We're up in the same area. Here's that same Brexit spike. Okay, we're pushing right back into the same zone again. Now, this is a little bit cleaner. You guys can see it on the daily. We had the spike up, we had a pullback, and we pushed in. So this one has actually formed a little bit of basing below. You guys can see it over here in this candle right here that we saw on, I'd say probably more this Friday. It is kind of flattening, right? At the end of Friday, we pushed up and pulled back down again. So same sentiment. Again, this was, again, a lot of dollar weakness last week. Again, right now, it's a strong push into the zone. The zone that this was formed off of is this basing level, okay? Not the best entry, but I do like the exit out of this one. You guys can see it was 5 candles straight to the downside, not a lot of wicks, so it was a very kind of, it was a very confident push from that zone. So we'll see what it's able to do. As you can see, as we push into this middle area, it did pull back. And again, we'll see when the dollar comes online. I do believe we will see some dollar strength this week just because it's pulled back so much right now. And again, that would lead us into, somewhat of a retracement back in this area. Important levels. One thing, again, the base below I don't love for a short. I don't necessarily love the fact that we have these large wicks here to the top side. They are ascending up, as well as we have an area here, okay? We definitely have some speed bumps on the way back down on this one. It's not a clean run all the way back down to 122. Again, that's a very large move in 1 week. You can see we did it, over the last, basically 2 weeks. But again, I think that eventually we may come back down to that area. All right. Let's see. Looking at dollar Swiss. Dollar Swiss, as you guys know, I have like a love-hate relationship with. There are days where it's great. There are other days where it is just kind of sideways and does nothing and very, very wicky, okay? We had an area where we're bouncing back and forth between. For a while, we were bouncing between kind of these two levels here, right? It was down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And we finally broke out of it, and then I kind of got sucked back in over here. We did push higher again, and we kind of formed a new channel, right? From this level, from kind of in here to in here, right? Again, use the bottom here, came up, top, bottom, top, top, and then we based on the bottom again, and then kind of went down and broke it again. So this one's kind of been all over the place as far as, really all the positions really in this have really been going sideways, right? We did have an area we're looking for a pullback here. Unfortunately, again, this one actually we never got an entry on. I always love when like I draw an arrow like that, look for it and it actually goes south, but I never got the entry on it. So price did move down there, but I never got an entry. So, it was there for strategy purposes for my group, and we didn't get it. This one, same thing. This is dollar weakness. This is not anything to do with the Swiss. Any bounce in the dollar, if you guys are looking at the Dixie at all, or any talk of renewed kind of slowing or no more further rate cuts is going to bring some dollar strength back in. I think with that dollar strength again, we will see this start to rally back up again. If you look at it on the daily, you can see it was basically 3 days of straight down, and now it's basing, it's flattening. It's getting rather slow, especially on the 4 hour. Again, let's see if this is this pattern right here with the ascending candles. Again, that's a nice little area of buyers. We'll see if we can start to get a flip and push back up, maybe even potentially back up to parity, back up to the one level again. Dollar CAD is something that we can actually look at this week. Last week, actually the last couple of weeks, dollar CAD hasn't had a lot of trade setups. As you can see, this one again, CAD news has been good, right? Again, we've had the pullbacks. This one I didn't draw the arrow, but I drew the kind of the retracement. It happened much faster than we thought, right? I don't know if I drew this with you guys or if I drew this with my group the first time. Again, I joke with my guys, this is called the Harry Potter trade. As you guys can see, instead of coming all the way here, it happened here. So I'd have to move it over a bit. So it did it much faster than we thought it was going to do it. And again, and it ended Friday right at that bottom level. So where we are now, as you can see, the last time price was down here, it literally came down here, spiked and retraced and turned immediately back up again. On the lower time frame, that was just kind of these two blue lines. It was actually drawn on the 4 hour, not the daily. But looking at the daily picture, and again, we've driven deep into this area of buyers. We've kind of bounced off the very tip of it. You guys can see this right here on the 30-minute. Below this, there's really not a whole lot down here till 130.60, okay? And that's about, what, 50 pips from where we are right now. The ATR on this pair is currently at what? At 50. So that could be the movement we have today to bring us right back down to that level. If we get down into this 130.50 area, it's definitely an area where we've seen price kind of bounce off of and then come up. You guys can see it doesn't spend a lot of time here, right? It's been really, I mean, we had a little bit of a bit in July, but besides that, we haven't had price back in this area since October of last year. It's been a year since price was down at this level. And again, this has really been a story of CAD weakness more than anything else. But again, dollar strength comes back in like we've seen in a lot of different pairs. That's what's going to turn and flip this back to the top side. So watch CAD news. Any bad CAD news, again, that will start giving us that dollar strength to the top side. Okay, but this was an example of that momentum breakout that I talk about. Looking at dollar yen, okay. Again, dollar yen has just been a story of, falling into the season in this case. Again, without a lot of news today, I don't expect this pair to be a big mover. You guys can see we had, last week we had one nice pop and then it really just kind of retested back again, right? It's been, some time coming back to the downside. Typical spike, this spike happened on Tuesday and then it just didn't do much, and it just really ground its way right back down again. For those of you that, or again, have been into one of the parabolic retracement webinars, this is kind of one of those setups where you get this explosive move, and then it's slow to retrace. It's always nice when it goes right back up and comes right back down again, but this case it was a pop, and this was a longer trade over the week, and really kind of finished up on Friday. And we've moved a little bit, but not too much. Again, U.S. traders are not online. This is just reactions to Brexit. So I do expect this will be a slower pair today. Looking on the 4-hour time frame, there's really not a whole lot there. On the daily, like I said, we are, we had our push up, we did pull back, and now we are forming some green candles. It did turn in an area of buyers. So we'll see if it makes a push higher, but I do believe if we get, we're at 108.50 right now. At the 109 mark, that's where we see some of this buying come in. And you guys can see the last time here, this long extended range candle, the last time it was 109, that's what happened. It ran into sellers and got kind of hammered to the downside, right? So we'll see. Any type of push higher, I'm going to be very kind of cautious with, but we'll see. This pair is not as much associated with the US dollar as it is the overall US indices of stock market. All right. So that's what we have going for the week. Like I said, slow week news-wise, just not a lot sitting there. And again, there's nothing we can do about that. It just, it's going to happen. Not every week can be the, chock full of everything week, right? So with that being said, guys, I'll be back on tomorrow morning, same time at 7:30. We'll see what the U.S. traders bring in today, what type of levels form. Hopefully we have a couple more that we can trade on minor term basis tomorrow, but we'll see how it goes. Mondays is really kind of our setup for the week. If you have any questions about anything I said today, you can check out the website, keeptradingsimple.com. You can email me directly, support@keeptradingsimple. If you want to catch our nightly sessions as well, those are free of charge. Twitch.tv/keeptradingsimple, or check us out on Instagram. I try to post as much as I can over there, but still playing catch up from the Vancouver trip. All right. Take care, guys. I will catch you tomorrow.